Righto. Well, my wife Emily actually had an idea for some videos that I could make, going through some skate terminology, so words, phrases, ways of describing things, to do with all sort of aspects of downhill skateboarding. And the idea came from, obviously, her being in a relationship with me for the past 10 years or so, and me always talking about skating, and her having to sort of figure out over time what I'm going on about. So, like, she would ask me when I'm talking about skating, oh, what does this thing mean, or what is that, or like, what are you even talking about? And so over the years, she's learned and kind of figured out all the terminology, and she had this idea that it might be cool to sort of do some videos running through some of the basic stuff, but also some of the more lingo stuff, like the slang that might be harder to pick up on. Because there's a lot of beginner skaters out there now, like people coming into the scene, and sometimes in my videos where I'm reviewing a wheel or talking about a skateboard or anything, I'm just saying stuff as if I was talking to my mates, and for new skaters, they might not have any idea what I'm talking about. So I think it's a great idea. Also, if you've been skating a while and your partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever, is similar kind of thing as Emily, doesn't know what you're talking about, but you're trying to share information with them, maybe these videos can help them too. But for the first one, we're gonna go through wheels. So I'm gonna go through a bunch of different stuff to do with the wheel, and I don't know, maybe some stuff will be new if you're new to skating. Hopefully this is kind of helpful, but yeah. Okay, so we'll start with the specs of a wheel. Most wheels will have some specs written on them. This is a rad advantage. You can see the specs are here. Freeze that for a sec. So your first one, this is on this wheel, says 74 millimeters. That's going to be your height, and that's how tall the wheel is, the ride height of the wheel. Measured in millimeters because it's better. The second is going to be your width, which is obviously the width of the wheel, height, width. This one doesn't actually say its width on the wheel, but it says contact, which is short for contact patch, and that is the width of the wheel that makes contact with the road, which in this case is the same as the width, but not all wheels are like that, as you'll see later on. So that's the width of the wheel that's going to make contact with the road. The other spec on the wheel is the durometer, so in this case it's ADA. And for downhill wheels, they're always measured in A. I know, like in street wheels, they have other letters, which is used to determine different like levels of hard and soft, but for longboarding, it's going to be an A, and most wheels are sort of between 75 and 85A. That's the general range that you're looking in. Alright, so now for sort of the parts of the wheel, this big white bit in the middle is called the core. And so the core is a harder plastic. It's the center of the wheel. It's kind of like your structure, your foundation, and it's also where the bearings sit. You can have different styles of cores, different companies make different shapes and stuff, but your sort of main, I guess you would call, styles of core is we have offset, which means the core is slightly off the center. Or it doesn't have to be slightly, anything that's not the center or the side, because another side is a side set core. So this wheel is offset. As you can see, the core is not in the center of the wheel, but it's also not on the side. So yeah, we have offset, center set, and side set. The closest wheel I've got to a center set is this skiff. I don't think it's technically because of the wheels, but you can kind of see the core goes on both sides. This is a bit of an odd case, but that was the best example I have. And a side set wheel is when the core lines up perfectly on the side of the wheel, so the bearing is actually in line with the side of the wheel here. Okay, one of the next sort of major defining features is square lip and round lip wheels. So a square lip, as you can see in this wheel, the edge of the wheel is very square. It's like a 90-degree angle, very sharp. And a round lip is round. You can see it kind of rounds through the lip. The key differences between a round lip and a square lip is this is going to be harder to slide, this is going to be easier to slide. When you go around corners really fast, this is going to stick and not want to slide, and this is going to start skidding and scrubbing and wanting to slide. By and large, square lip wheels are for racing and for going fast and taking grip lines, and round lip wheels are free riding, cruising, doing slides. The difference between square and round is also one of the big factors in edge grip, and so that's kind of that feeling of when you're carving or turning or whatever, where you feel if the wheel's going to slide or not. You can kind of feel that edge. A square lip is going to have a much stronger defined edge grip, and a round lip wheel is going to have more of a gray area between sliding and gripping. But yeah, that's square and round. Wheels are made of urethane or polyurethane, or as we like to call it, just thane. And that's the soft plastic that wheels are made of. So yeah, polyurethane is a type of plastic. Most people just call it urethane, or for short, thane, and that's where the term thane lines also comes from. So when you do your slides on the road and it leaves those lines, that's why we call it thane. And some of the stuff might seem so obvious if you've been skating for a while, but if you're new that you have no idea, like, it's kind of cool. But yeah, urethane. Alright, so now some skate terms sort of about like the lifespan of a wheel, I guess. So a fresh wheel means brand new, it's fresh, it's just come out of the packet, it hasn't been rolled on. It's gonna have skin on it, and this skin, you can see it's very shiny, very grippy, and at this stage in a wheel's life is the grippiest. It kind of sticks to the road, and that's what a fresh wheel is. Once you've done a few slides and you've sort of roughed it up a bit, we would call this scrubbed. And so you can see it's still a little shiny. This is a different wheel that's been scrubbed in. But it's not as shiny, it's not as smooth. You can see it started to roughen up a little bit. Some of the lips have started to slightly rough. So it's sort of in between being fresh and being broken in, which we'll get to next. And it's going to be grippier than a broken in wheel, but it's not as fresh as a fresh wheel. We call these scrubs. And racers will often race fresh wheels, and then they'll sell their scrubs, or they'll keep them as freeride wheels, but they'll stop racing once the wheels are scrubbed in. After scrubbed, you get to broken in, which, as you can see, it's no longer shiny or smooth. It's all roughed up. The edges are all roughed in, and at this stage of the wheel, it's just going to slide. It's going to, you know, do what it's sort of supposed to do. It's not going to grip as around corners and stuff as well as a fresh wheel would. Any wheel you buy fresh is going to have that fresh layer, and so some freeride wheels will come stone ground, and that's when they artificially break in the wheels for you to bring it that rough edge so that when you buy it, it's going to slide easier out of the way and you skip that sticky side. And that's only for freeride wheels. You wouldn't want that on a race wheel because you want that fresh skin to race on. But yeah, that's what stone grinding is. Okay, swirling is something I actually had a few videos ago. I did a review on the 88 Wheelco Moonwalkers, and they were swirled. And some people ask me, like, what are you saying swirl? What does that mean? Swirling is, see if you can see it in this wheel. I'm not sure how well you'll see it. It's when the urethane, it's not consistent when the wheel is made and set, and so it hasn't been mixed properly, or at some point in the wheel making process, it's kind of had a problem in it or something. But it basically creates unevenness within the urethane, and the result is the swirly looking pattern in the wheel. And the reason that matters is because it can lead into something we call ovaling. Ovaling is when your wheel is no longer a circle, it becomes an oval, like an egg. And the reason swirling can cause this is sometimes if a urethane has swirled, the different parts can wear at different rates as you slide. As you wear the wheel down, some parts might be softer and they might wear away faster, and others might be harder and they might wear away, like take longer to wear away, which will result in your wheel not wearing at the same rate the whole way around, which can cause ovaling. Something similar to ovaling is flat spotting, and that's when you do a slide and you slide at 90 degrees is your angle of your slide, and so the wheels go straight down the road. They stop spinning while you're sliding and they slide straight, and that can, I mean, if you think about it, obviously cause a flat chunk to get worn in your wheel. This tends to happen more with thinny wheels, with less durable wheels. And obviously once that happens, your wheel is no longer round, there's a little flat spot on it. It's going to make bumping noises, it's going to start to vibrate when you ride on it, and it's going to suck, basically. Flat spots suck. So that's what a flat spot is. The only real way you can fix flat spots is if you do really nice, good, low angle drifts, then sometimes you can round the wheel back out again. It will go from a flat spot to an oval, and if you've got the right wheels or you get onto it quick enough, you can actually round it out to being a circle again. The only other way is to put the wheels on some form of lathe and artificially wear down the wheels again. I've seen people do it with files, or some people just straight up have a lathe or have access to a lathe and they put their wheel on a lathe and use a lathe tool to wear it down evenly. But yeah, flat spotting is, it sucks. It's part of learning, it's part of skating, it happens. Yeah. Some other forms of wheel wear is coning. And coning is when, I mean, a lot of these things are in the name themselves. Your wheel starts to look like a cone. And so that's when the width will be on an angle, or you could say the height of the wheel is higher on one end than the other. This one is slightly coned, but it's not too obvious. And what causes coning is when you slide the same way. So if you're doing all heel sides or all toe sides, you're wearing the wheels the same way every time. If you think about the wheels on the road and your weighting is coming in a diagonal, you're pushing the wheel like this, it's going to wear more on that lip and less on this lip. And it just, simple, you're wearing it one way more than the other can cause it to cone. And this isn't really a big problem, it just means your wheels are wearing unevenly, and so you sort of want to swap your wheels around on your board if you notice that your wheels are coning. Put the ones on the side that's getting the cone this way onto the other side of the board. Keep doing what you're doing, they're going to even out. Yeah, depending on the wheels you ride, you might have to rotate once a session, once a week, once a month, you know, once every few runs. It just depends, and something to keep an eye on. Yeah, another part of skating with wheels is chunking, and not all wheels chunk, and you notice it more in the square-lipped wheels. Chunking is when pieces of the wheel will actually rip off, like chunks of the wheel come off. I don't have one in front of me. Magnums are notorious for it, so maybe one of mine is already chunked. Let's have a look. Here we go. This one's not too bad. I haven't been riding these wheels too long, but you can see around the lips of the wheel, there's little chunks missing. But yeah, that's called chunking. And most of the time, most wheels don't chunk too much. A little bit like that here and there. The edges get kind of rough, like especially a square lip. But if you skate really rough pavement on the right kind of wheel, or you hit like a big crack in the middle of a slide, sometimes it can rip off a huge chunk of the wheel, and that can be a bit more of a problem. But that's what chunking is. Chord wheel is when you skate a wheel and you wear it all the way to the core. So this would be an example of a clean core because it goes all the way around. Some people just call coring wheels like when you finish a wheel. I'm pretty like antsy about coring wheels, and I say you actually have to get to the core, like you can plastic, like it's the core. But yeah, no, it just means finishing a set of wheels, you can't ride them anymore. They're just horrendous at this point. And if I clean core a set of wheels, I like to keep them as trophies. I've got my little shelf up there. Yeah, my little trophy shelf. I've been keeping all the wheels that I've cored like clean set since I was a kid. All the rest are back at my parents' place in New Zealand. But it's just kind of a fun thing with skating. Yeah, different wheels would core differently. You can see this is a side set core. It's very thin. I'll grab a couple. This is a ABIC 11 Amber Freeride core. Sort of a more generic, having the core on the sides and having urethane still in the middle. This is a Hogs Tracer core. It's quite a narrow core in the center. This is a ABIC 11 Flashback. You can see this one went all hourglassed and kind of crazy with the skinny bit of core in the middle. Yeah, it's kind of fun. I enjoy skating wheels to the very core, and yeah, just keeping them as a trophy. It's pretty cool. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about how wheels feel and how to describe how wheels feel. There's a bunch of different ways to describe things. A lot of people probably have different ways of describing, but I'll just go through the ways I use and how I kind of grew up using. Sort of your two starting points is a wheel in the pavement or on the pavement? And that can sound strange. If you've been skating a bit and you've been sliding wheels, it might be easy to understand as I explain it. But it's sort of, does the wheel feel like it's gliding across the top? Or does it feel like it's in there and it's really having a lot of resistance as it goes? So your in the pavement wheels are going to be wheels that normally feel more grippy, and your on the pavement are going to normally be wheels that feel slipperier because they sort of glide over the pavement or they're sort of getting stuck in it. So generally speaking, your round lips are going to feel more on the pavement and your square lips are going to feel more in the pavement because they're grabbing it and gripping, and these are sort of gliding over the top. Yeah, and then some of the ways to describe how a slide feels. I know when I was getting into skating, 9-10 years ago, the words were sort of like sugary, icy, buttery, and sticky are sort of the main ways that I grew up learning it. And so sugary normally leaned into like a sort of slippery wheel that's still thaned, and so it would have that in the pavement feel, but it would still be slippery and it would leave thin lines, but it would be slippery. And you can kind of imagine like if you had a sugar cube and you grated it along the road, that's how a sugary wheel would feel to slide. It would make quite a crisp noise. Icy would be just really on top of the pavement, not a lot of thin lines, and quite slippery, and would just kind of glide along, and the noise would sort of be like a hissing noise, like a shh. So a modern day equivalent would be like a snake is a reasonably icy wheel. It's quite on the pavement and glides across the top and has that sort of whoosh noise. Buttery, I guess the best example of this is butterballs. I'm pretty sure that's where the name comes from. And that's a wheel that has a really in the pavement kind of grippy slide, but especially on a hot day will still slide pretty nicely. So that's your really thick, thin lines, a fair bit of stopping power, but still like smooth sliding wheel. That's a buttery wheel. It feels really, it's in the pavement, but it's not stopping you too aggressively. You can really slide, but you're still really feeling the pavement underneath you. And then sticky, that's the wheels where if you're going slow and you try and slide, they just don't slide, or you're going fast, you can feel the slide slow you down really aggressively. That's a sticky wheel. It's sticking to the pavement. That's sort of still like the main four ways I use to describe how a wheel slides. The other thing is lippy. A lippy wheel is kind of how it sounds. This is the lip of the wheel. Does it feel like the lip is catching? And that can be when you're carving or turning. Usually when you're sliding, does it feel like it's kind of going up on that lip? That's what lippy would mean. But yeah, that's sort of my breakdown of all the skate lingo, focusing on wheels. Let me know if I missed anything. I'm sure I missed a ton. If there's anything I said that you have a different word for, that would be really cool. I know when I moved to the States, there's a bunch of skate lingo that you guys say differently, and it's weird, but it's cool. And I'm sure other places around the world, everyone has their own words for things. But let me know in the comments like any skate lingo I missed specifically to do with wheels, and stay tuned for the next one. Try and do a whole series on these things, but yeah.